Are bigger knobs better? Bigger tyre knobs? Does a bigger, burlier tyre always deliver more grip? We're going to be explaining all things tyre knob in this video. Now, here's a little secret. Your perfect tyre to build that confidence in your riding might not just be down to really big lugs or big knobs. Let's explain. When it comes to how a tyre tread actually generates grip for you, we've got three main things. We've got mechanical grip, then we've got adhesion, and then actually we've got the tyre carcass too. I feel like a lot of these terms you'll know because GMBN Tech viewers know a lot about bikes already. But don't worry, we're going to dive into lots of nerdy detail about all of it. Tyres need to do a lot. Heck, they should be your only contact point with the ground. And through a range of lots of different riders, whether you be XC, whether you be downhill, whether you be an EMTB or a trail rider, they've got to deliver. They've got to deliver confidence. They've got to deliver traction. But conversely, even if you're a super fit cross-country racer or you're the most boosted e-bike rider, they've also got to deliver rolling efficiency. It's quite the tightrope for the engineers to deliver a tyre that can deliver that confidence to all those different riders and different racers, and in different trail conditions and trail surfaces. And I think that sort of hammers home one of the key points is if the engineers need to compromise some of their technologies and tools when they're designing tyres, well, us as riders have to too. Just because one person finds one tyre perfect doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be perfect for you, because there's so many different variations. It's quite the puzzle. Before we get too deep into the weeds, let's quickly cover some of the terms and tech that we're going to be talking about. Tyre carcass. This is literally the fabric that underpins your tyre. And depending on how you orient that fabric and how many plies, how many layers of fabric you use, you can change your tyre from a cross-country tyre with a supple base to an enduro tyre where it's really stiff and supportive. Tread, lugs, knobs. Put simply, these are the protuberances from the tyre carcass. Working edges. These are the sharper lines that give us the mechanical grip that we need. We're going to talk about that in more depth a little bit later, but they're going to do different things. We've got areas that work really well under braking. They often have a more sharper edge for more bite. But then there's softer ones that have more gentle ramped profiles to help with pedaling. And they'll be in a different orientation for the rotation of the tyre. So often this forward section here is ramped to help smooth the pedaling profile, where this back edge, which will help more with braking, is a much sharper edge. Centre section lugs and transitional lugs. So where the lugs are on the carcass make a difference. Often these centre sections here can be used for smoother rolling, even on a burly tyre like this. We've got a continuation of them in the same place. They can also help with braking as well, and the position and shaping of those lugs is really important. The transitional lugs might not feel like they make that much difference, at least when looking at the tyre, but these ones here and here are really key. As you rotate the bike over, you're changing from this centre section here into this grip zone along the side before you hit the shoulder lugs. So it can make a really big difference when the bike's leaning over on off cambers or when you're turning. One key thing about these transitional lugs or knobs is that they really help give some feedback and feel as you're riding. Some tyres just have central blocks, a big empty channel, and then a shoulder lug. It can feel a little bit vague and wondery when you're transitioning from that centre knob to the shoulder lug, which is why on lots of tyres, that transitional knob is so important just for feedback on the trail. Tread depth. This tyre has got really tall knobs to bite into softer terrain. This one has got much lower ones, well, for different terrain. Next we've got to talk about sipes. Weird word, named after John Sipe, who invented them. Effectively, we're talking about all these small lines and cuts on the tread knobs. Compound. This is how soft or how hard the rubber that's used to make the knobs is. But how do all these different terms and all this different tech interact to get you traction. We can explain that next. Mechanical. Now, this might sound overly complex, but actually it's one of the more intuitive things about how tread gets traction. It's simply how these tread lugs interlock into the ground below. Now, ground below, we'll come back to that later because that's key to this lug chat. This is when the lugs bite deep into the terrain. They push down into the trail. Sometimes they'll deform a little. Sometimes it's just down to the depth of the lug into the dirt. Either way, they can form little anchors, which resist sliding, and no slip equals grip. Depending on the trail surface, the lugs can interlock with that packed trail material, creating tiny physical walls or interlocking against the lug, and this means you're able to carry load and move forward or slow down. If we're looking to boost grip, we need to boost the contact area. That's where and how these lugs can interact with the ground, and more surface area can really help. Now, back to the ground and back to those anchors. Yeah, I know we're talking about bike tyres, but boat anchors don't just come in one shape. No, they come in a huge variety of different sizes and shapes. And that's because of all the different materials that they need to sink into or grapple onto in their undersea worlds. And actually, it's the same for bike tyres and these tread lugs. They've got to be different for different terrain. More on that next. Back to the ground. I'm not a soil scientist, but as a mountain biker, I can tell you a heck of a lot about different soil substrates. And in my conclusive ground-based assessment, unfortunately, some terrains just don't let lugs sink in. Some of my favourite trails are a real mix of trail surface. Sometimes subtly so, sometimes jarringly so, under tyre especially. And it's this wonderful mix. It's not like a black and white topographical map. It's like a 3D Technicolor fly-through. And with that high definition detail in all the different dirts, well, the lugs have got to do a lot in different surfaces. There's soft surfaces that are dry and very loose. There's softer surfaces that are damp and tacky, heck, downright claggy. Then there's hard, smooth surfaces that are slick. Then there's hard, smooth surfaces that are grippy as well. The problem is, if you've got a tyre with big knobs, they're very tall. And also, that top section is often quite small. So on a harder surface, they're not able to penetrate in. They're not able to get the grip. Whereas this mezcal, with its centre section, you've got lots of contact all the time. The other thing that the mezcal's got, as we pedal off, is got lots of working edges. And that means on this really quite lovely granite, the tyre designers have got to do clever stuff to make the lugs engage. All these delightful differences in the trails that we ride mean that a simple flat top lug isn't going to cut it, because we can't always guarantee that that lug is going to be able to penetrate into the trails that we ride. Soft condition, be those dry or wet, it's easy to imagine how a tyre can work. And we've got a good example of a good working soft and loose condition tyre. This is a Vittoria motor. And we've got these big lugs that can penetrate into the trail surface and provide lots of grip. It's also quite open as well, which we've touched on before. But how do you make a tyre like this grip on a surface that's, well, unyielding? How can you get all this surface contact? Because that's what these lugs are doing, is pressing into the ground and boosting that contact patch. How can you make that happen when the trail is unyielding? Well, with a lot of clever design work and lug work. And there's another example of a soft condition tyre that's had that makeover. The Mostro is a similar tyre to the Moto. We've got deep tread pattern, we've got deep lugs, and we've got a really open pattern. But the surface of each individual knob has got lots of more of these little cuts and sipes and edges. And these really boost surface contact. But there's another thing that's really clever about the way these cuts are shaped into the lugs. And that enables some engineered flex. And that means that these little lugs in here can open up a little bit more, offering more contact patch in certain areas. And you've got them on all of these, on the transitional knobs, on these centre line, and on the shoulders. The shoulders especially, there's several different cuts and stepped cuts. And all of these cuts are, well, opening up the tread lug to bite into harder surfaces. But again, what if the surface is really unyielding? What to do then? Well, there's another designer trick that tyre engineers can use. And here's a great example of a tyre. It's the opposite end of the Mostro. This is the Peyote. It's a cross-country race tyre. Of course, if you've seen cross-country recently, it isn't what it used to be. It is really quite burly. But it's a great example of a tyre with lots and lots of working edges on all of these knobs, and some really clever, unique designs of how these little knobs here taper, and you've got lots of snipes and cuts in all of the knobs to boost that contact patch. So I asked the question, how do you make a tyre if the terrain isn't going to yield? Well, you make the tyre yield. You design it so all of these working edges can flex just a little bit, boosting the contact patch, boosting the grip, and allowing that interlocking and that traction to happen. Of course, with such a low profile tread, it's not going to offer the deep penetrating grip in soft conditions. But as we've touched on, different tyres have got different demands upon them, and that means that they're going to be tweaked and tailored for different terrain. Lot of lug chat, but beyond mechanical grip, we've got adhesion. That's the chemical grip between the ground and the compound of your tyre. It's much like, well, a rock climbing shoe versus, well, a leather bowling shoe. Or think like a golf ball versus a bouncy ball. But those climbing shoes rely on sole to rock face friction. That doesn't quite work in the messy off-road world. But these soft compounds have got another trick up their sleeves, and that's that they're more compliant and they can flex a little bit more. They can deform, and when they rebound to their original form, they can offer much more grip. So when that knob hits a root or a rock, yes, it's going to deform. And if you're lucky enough just to have, well, just the tread lug and the rock contact, there is going to be more stickiness and more grip. But it's also, they can deform, and that boosts that contact patch, which means, well, more grip, less slip. Now a little bit more non-knob chat. Because even if you've got the best lugs and you've got all the right sipes and you've got all the right angles and working profiles, if you don't have the right carcass to support them, well, you're not going to make a great tyre. Then there's lots of differences in how you can construct a carcass. We're basically laying up fabric over itself, sometimes in single ply, sometimes in dual ply, sometimes, well, more. And those can all change the ride characteristics. Then there's inserts underneath, sometimes under the tread lug section, sometimes in the sidewall. But all of these are factors into how that tyre is going to handle and how those lugs are going to interact. Think of a really supple casing that's really soft. Well, maybe in XC that could work, but with the tread lugs, it's going to need more support. It's going to need more air pressure inside it. And that's actually something we haven't discussed. Actually, it's a whole other video talking about tyre pressure. But essentially, if you've got a really soft, supple casing, you're probably going to need more air pressure to support the tyre and to support those tread lugs. So potentially, a slightly stiffer carcass might be a better option, even for XC. At the other end of the scale, if you've got really tall, really loud protuberances of rubber from this soft, supple carcass, well, it's going to flex in weird ways. So, carcass is really important. Make sure you've got the right one for how you're riding. So back to that earlier question that I proposed. Does a bigger, burlier knobbed tyre always deliver more traction? Well, maybe not. Depends on the conditions, doesn't it? I guess we need to say something probably quite obvious. How I ride and where I ride is going to be different to where you ride. So what tyre you need and what tyre lugs you need are going to be different. But some of the learnings that I've got today, well, I definitely need a tyre that gives me confidence. That I know, because I don't have the skills that some of the other presenters have. I also don't have the fitness that some of the other presenters have. So actually the fastest, most efficiently rolling tyre is what I need, because, well, it's free speed. And that's a good thing because, well, it makes riding a little bit easier. So, the one thing that I did learn today, especially in this varied and rocky landscape, is actually how the tyres work and how those lugs engage means that a different tyre here is going to work in the loamy conditions I'm used to. And here, actually, that mezcal was my favourite. It was able to give me the faster rolling that I need on the climbs, but also all those working edges could find grip in the mix of, well, softer, open material and also the hard rocks. And that's the conundrum for the tyre engineers, is balancing getting as much traction as possible with, well, that efficiency of rolling speed. Not just for racers, it's for people like you and me as well. And I think that's my big take home, is that actually getting the right tyres can make a really big difference to the whole ride. Yes, if you just do downhill runs, then yes, focus on all that traction. But if you're riding up and down, then actually some of the smaller, littler knob tyres, like the mezcal, might be enough just for your riding. So have a play and let me know in the comments down below which tyre is your favourite, what's your go-to and what trail conditions you're riding in. If you've liked this video, well, give it a like, it really helps. And if you haven't already subscribed, please do. It means that you can give you all this content, well, even sooner. Cheers.